season of Lotus Richey Ignite Show, bringing you realness, authenticity, and unparalleled wisdom from top leaders, business professionals, pioneers, and everyday people. Thank you for joining us. Have a great time during the show. Woo-woo! Hello, this is your girl, Dr. Lotus Richey, and I am super happy to be here today. Let me tell you, I have had a fabulous week thus far. Now, as you may know, I was on the studio hot seat last night with the James Brown Band, and of course, it was nothing less than spectacular. But tonight, I shouldn't say but, and tonight we have got a magnificent show in store for you. So go ahead, honey, come on in and get it where you fit in, because I've always got room right around my table for you, and I've got a stellar show for you tonight. So go ahead, tell your friends, tell your frenemies, tell your dog Toto, tell your grandma too, to come on in and let it do what it's gonna do, because we are going to ignite and take flight in every area of the show tonight. So while you're coming on in, I want you to tell us where you're coming in from, and make sure you tag a friend. And then don't be afraid to even call them jokers out. Put their name in the post and say, hey, come on in, because we've got a hot guest for you tonight, and she is simply magnificent. So wherever you coming in from, we want to give them a shout out. Let your neighbors, let your friends, let your frenemies know that you are in the house with Lotus Richey Ignites tonight, keeping it right and tight. So look, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I want you to go ahead, share this broadcast. Go to my page, to the Lotus Richey Ignites, or to Lotus Richey. Even go to YouTube, because we're broadcasting there too. And go ahead and share this on your platforms, and let me know what platform you're sharing to, so we can go and boost you up too. All right. So look, I'm going to do what I'm going to do and let you do what you're about to do too. Be right back. All right, you've got 24 seconds to make the magic happen. Let's make the magic happen, baby. You've got 16 seconds. Tag a friend and tell them to come on in. That's right. Y'all know how I do it. So listen, as you come in the house, I know you're going to be reflecting on the James Brown Band that we had here last night. And you know, during that conversation last night, they talked about some wonderful things about Mr. James Brown. Before the episode ended, I even had a contest to see who could do Mr. James Brown the best. I'm going to do my thing. And I tell you, it was hilarious. But one thing that was so amazing about the show is because they were able to share real-time information. They talked about the joys, they talked about the laughter, and they talked about the pain. And you know, it's a great segue for the show tonight, because they went through a lot of cycles that a lot of people go through in the entertainment field, but also in everyday life. We all go through some type of trauma, some traumatic situation. And guess what? It's pervasive. People all around the world have traumatic situations. And maybe you have as well, or somebody you know. Well, tonight, this show is going to be amazingly powerful. Someone you know in the deep corners of the world needs to hear this broadcast. So be sure to share this broadcast with everyone you know and ask them to share it as well. Because tonight we are going to be talking about a powerful topic that many of you have already either experienced in life or are experiencing right now. And what that is breaking the cycle. You may say, Dr. Lotus, what do you mean about breaking the cycle? Well, I have a fantastic guest tonight, and she is one of the co-authors of a wonderful book called Hush, Breaking the Cycle of Silence Around Sexual Abuse. And you know what? I've got the book right here in my hand. And we're not only just going to talk about breaking the cycle around sexual abuse, but we're also going to be talking about breaking the cycle of stigmas, breaking the cycle of thoughts where you think you can't do something, where everybody is saying, no, you can't do this. You're a woman. You can't own your own business. You're a kid. You can't start a business. Well, we know that's just not so. And tonight we're going to talk about it. And some of you out there are going to feel breakthroughs. Some of you I know are going to be set free. You know how I know that? Because we've already prayed and asked for you to be set free. And so go ahead, come on in, share this with a friend because we're getting ready to start the show. And so tonight, my amazing guest is no other than a wonderful young lady that hails all the way from Rochester, Michigan. She is a multiple author. She is a speaker. She is a trainer. She is a coach. And she's a publisher. And guess what? She is a show guest. But not only all of those things, she too had a hush story. And when she was able to share her hush story, it set her free. And so tonight, we're going to let her come here and talk to us about what has set her free and what's keeping her free and how she's reaching back into the world around her and helping authors and people just like you and me set themselves free and break the cycle of silence. So if you're ready, come on in, come on in. I want to hear some love in the house. Go ahead and put some L's in the house because we about to get this party started. And guess what? You are a part of the party. And honey, it's going to be sizzling because it's time to ignite and take flight. We'll be right back.
The new season of Lotus Shade Night Show, bringing you realness, authenticity, and unparalleled wisdom from top leaders, business professionals, pioneers, and everyday people. Thank you for joining us. Have a great time during the show. You're here tonight with the Lotus Shade Night Show, featuring our amazing guest, Tenita C. Johnson, also known as Tenita Bestseller Johnson. With over 18 books to her credit, she is living proof that sharing your story leads to your destiny.
You have to see yourself in a different place. The depression comes and it tells you that there will never be better days. That the way it is today, it will always be this way. And that's just not the truth. Better days are coming. Hang on. Better days are coming. Hang on. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Better days are going to come. I'm a witness. If you just hold on, if you just wait a little while longer, I promise you, the days are going to get better and it's going to be worth it.
Let's ignite.
Come on, let's get it, y'all. I want you to welcome my guest, none other than the bestseller herself, Tenita Johnson is here. Woo! What's going on, lady?
Listen, I need that promo video for myself for everything I do. I said that was hot. Listen, I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Lolis. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, lady, we know that you hail from Rochester, Michigan. We know you're a speaker, a #1 best-selling author, a trainer, a publisher, and so much more. And you too have had your moment with silence. And tonight, I am so happy to have you here as we talk about breaking the cycle, right? Breaking the cycle of silence around sexual abuse.
Yes.
And so, folks, this is our disclaimer before we even get started. We are not going to psychoanalyze you. We are not licensed psychologists trying to tell you how to live your life. What we're sharing is not medical advice, but this is advice, or not advice, but experiences straight from the heart.
Yes.
Information that we know has worked for others, and it just may work for you. So as we get in, I want to tell you, come on in and get in where you fit in, because I've always got room around my table for you. And tonight we're going to get right into this wonderful topic because, hey, we've got a serial author here with multiple books to her name, and she's helped hundreds of people have books to their name. But tonight we're going to talk about one of the books that she co-authored, and the book is called Hush. And I guess you can imagine when you hear hush, that means be quiet. So, first and foremost, I want to say you're looking dynamite.
Thank you. You too.
That's right. So, thank you so much. And I know that you're a mom, you have a busy life, and you made it to the show. So, thank you for making it to the show. And those of you around the world, you're happy that she's here on the show. Go ahead and put a number 2 in the comment block so you know and she know that you too are happy that she's here. So, with that being said, I want you, if you would, tell our guests a bit about you, a little more than I shared, because I told them a little bit, but I want to hear more from you.
Absolutely. So I am a mom of 3. I am a wife. I am a book coach. Many people may not know that as well. But I am also a proud survivor of sexual abuse. I am the CEO of a nonprofit centered around healing both men and women of sexual abuse called the Monarch Circle. And it's my life's passion, my life's mission to just shine a light into dark places and keep shining a light into dark places until we get comfortable having these conversations at the dinner table.
I love it. I love it. What I really like that you tapped on was that you were there for both men and women.
Yes.
Because oftentimes the men folk get left out.
Yes.
Oftentimes people are just focusing on the women folk, and not that there's anything wrong with it, because it's unequivocal. Women have been molested, raped, abused in many ways for many years, and they have been told to hush.
Hush. Mm-hmm.
And in recent times, it's becoming more obvious to society that men too have been told to hush.
To hush.
From the abuse that they've sustained at the hands of men and women.
Yes.
And the same is true for women. We have suffered abuse at the hands of both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that you say that you're there for both people. So I want to ask you a question about that, because you say men and women. What inspired you to tackle both? Because it's hard just to tackle helping women,
right?
But then you're helping men too, because we have different thought processes. We're different, and we have different challenges.
So, Dr. Lotus, it was actually inspired by one of my co-authors in Hush 2. I believe you have Hush 1 in your hands, but yes. Hush 2 actually has 3 African-American males who were brave enough to speak out about their journey with sexual abuse. And one of the things he told me was he walked into a room with women to seek help from sexual abuse, and he was shunned. They didn't believe that he was sexually abused. They threatened to stop the meeting. They threatened to walk out of the meeting if he stayed. So literally, he kind of magnified the problem with men, that there really is nowhere for men of sexual abuse to heal. Where do they go heal unless we create the space for that?
Wow. Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because I remember watching a movie. I think and this person is you probably know of him. His name is Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart starred in this movie, and he was raising his daughter by himself, and he went into a place, and it was for women, parents, right? Mm-hmm. But it said parents, right?
It said parents, not
all
women.
It was all women in there, right? And so he walks in with the baby. Does he have the baby? I think he
had the baby. Yeah. And they were looking at him like, "What are you doing?"
Like, what are you doing here? You got to get out of here. You're not welcome here, right? And he was like, wait a minute. This thing says parent, and I'm a
Parent.
parent, and I need help. I don't know what to do. The girl is pooping everywhere. She got, so he really goes in with such passion.
Yes.
And what he identified in that moment was, I have the same problems that you have as a woman, but from a male's perspective, and I'm handling it different because my breasts don't have milk, so I
Right.
can't feed this baby when she's crying and she's hungry. And I need nurturing to help
Yeah.
me nurture my child. And so that in turn is what you're doing. You're
Yeah. And so,
nurturing.
Dr. Lotus, like you said, most signs they may say for survivors of sexual abuse, but what they really mean is for female survivors of
Yes.
sexual abuse. Because if a male shows up, he will probably be the only male.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true. And it's unfortunate, but here today we're going to talk about that, and we're endeavoring to inspire people all around the world to make that a thing of the past, so
Mm-hmm.
that men do have a safe place that they can go and share their stories, devoid of being ostracized or put
Yes.
down in any way. Because I think a lot of times men are not expected to show sensitivity to some of the things that are happening in their life, especially when it comes to sexual abuse.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
with that being said, you and we talked about it. I have your book. I know a couple of the authors in your book. Phenomenal book, phenomenal work, what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
You're welcome. And this topic tonight is really super difficult. So, what
Mm-hmm.
inspired you to come to the show tonight so that we can talk about this?
So I love the show. Let me just say this. I love the diversity of the show. I'm looking at the comments at Nigeria and DC and the Philippines, and people are everywhere. So I am in love with the fact that this show will reach the masses. And I am not oblivious to the fact that sexual abuse is not a United States thing. It's
Right.
happening in other countries, it's happening in other planets, probably. And it's happened for generations upon generations upon generations. And so my goal is to help people break the cycle. Like we said, our goal is to break the cycle of silence, because for far too long, too many people have been silent. Some people take it to the grave, but
Exactly.
for far too long, too many people have gone silent.
Exactly. And I thank you for carrying the torch of hope, because now people who may oftentimes have thought that they were the only one, they see that, one, first, you're not the only one, and there is hope out
Mhm.
here. There are people that identify with you and want to help you from a non-blaming way. And so I
Yes.
want to talk about that as well,
Mhm.
because a lot of times people are blamed when they're not the person that should be blamed for the sexual abuse.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about that tonight, but I want to trickle back some, because I really want people to understand that you and I both have a story.
Yes.
We both experience abuse. Um, I experienced abuse, a sexual abuse, at the hands of a young kid, okay,
Mhm.
who, in my mind, the way I was able to forgive him was, there must be some man doing this to him. Oh,
Correct.
what a tragedy.
Mhm.
Um, and so, with you, can you share a bit about your story, as much as you like, and how that impacted you, and how it gave you the push to help people just like you and I?
Absolutely. Dr. Lotus, the biggest thing for me was getting lost in my identity and who I was, because the first person who molested me was a female cousin. So you mentioned another kid. So I may have been 7 or 8, she may have been 12. But like you said, who was doing what to her in order for her to know what to do to me, even at
Right.
12, you know? And then fast forward to 13, 14 years old, male hairdresser who my mother trusted. He was a deacon in the church. He did hair in his basement at his home. I was always first, 7 a.m. appointment on a Saturday, and I'm the only person there, just me and him. So he shot his shot, And so on top of that, it was like, do I have a sign on my back or my chest that says, molest me and I'm vulnerable and I'm desperate, or I have the root of rejection, or, pick me. And so all of that trickled into promiscuity, addiction to porn and masturbation, problems in intimacy in my marriage, even locking up and freezing sometimes with my husband, even. So all the different triggers, they didn't just go away. And I think a lot of people say, if I just hush, if I don't talk about it, it's going to just go away.
Right.
And it's not. So a key word now in 2022 is manifesting. So when your triggers start manifesting, as people say, something is clearly wrong, and you can't deny that something is wrong. Now you may have to go back and find the root of what is wrong. But the present day situation is not the problem. So it's not your spouse, it's not your husband, it's not your wife, it's not the way that person touched you. The problem is when that person touched you in that way, it reminded you of the molestation.
Exactly. And you and I have had a sit down talk about this, and I've been there. It's happened in my private life as well. And the thing about it, and we're going to talk about this too, is that a lot of times we are hushed because sometimes it's family, it's clergy.
Most times it's family.
Yeah. And
most times, Dr. Lotus, I tell people, we are so fearful of the man at the park that is watching kids and the stranger that we don't know in the grocery store. That's not who you need to watch for. The enemy is so cunning, and it's going to come through those who are closest to you, those who are most familiar with you. It's those that you least expect. It'll be the cousin who spends the night every weekend.
Exactly. I concur. And here's the thing, you talked about family, and that's happened to me within my own family. Okay. It happened to me with the babysitter's grandson. And when we talk about church, a lot of times people don't expect clergy to molest young children and or young adult church members, because that does happen, and it's unequivocal. When I grew up, I went to Catholic school, Catholic grammar school, Catholic high school, and there were incidents that young kids, we talk, and we talk about the nuns or the priests and some of the things that they were doing to kids, and so it's without question that this is not surfacing just in the Catholic churches or the Baptist churches or the Methodist churches. It is pervasive, and it is not just pervasive when we talk about churches here in the United States, but it's pervasive globally.
Yes.
And so we have to come out of the thought process of, I call it Silence of the Lambs in my book that I wrote with a dear friend of mine. It's called, I've got so many thoughts, but the book basically says that we are able to advance in the middle of challenging times, to transcend, okay? Transcending in the middle of challenge.
Yes.
Okay. And in that book was the first time ever that I told the world about what happened to me at age 6.
Wow.
Now, mind you, I had told my mom early on, and she told my dad. My sister knew. But the fact remains is that my parents, they were working. So
that's right.
After school, I had to go to a babysitter, right?
Me too.
I wasn't a latchkey kid.
Right.
And so let's talk about how our parents feel.
Yeah.
This thing happens to their child.
Yeah. And I think it's pivotal to understand. And it took me a while to understand where my mother was when this was happening. So she gave birth to me at 13, 14 years old. So if I was 8, she was all of maybe 21, 22,
Yes.
still, trying to finish college, work, all the things. So, I was pretty much being raised by my grandmother. And whenever my grandmother wasn't available, then there was an older cousin who would have to come over and watch me or babysit me or anything like that. But looking back on it, Dr. Lotus, my grandmother was intentional about having the babysitter come to the house. I could
Yes.
never go to their house, even though they were my cousin. I
Yes.
wanted to go to their house and spend the night. My
Mhm.
grandmother would say no.
No.
So that let me know she knew something was going on in the house.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and she thought by me not going to the house that she was still protecting me. But little did she know you were already bringing a tainted member of the family now into our house.
Right. And
They
and
didn't know.
here's the thing. The bad thing is that a lot of times the wives, the aunties, the sisters, they know that these men are molesting these girl children, and
Yes,
sometimes even I can't say worse, but they're also aware that they're molesting the boy child.
correct. Yep.
So the question is, where does it stop?
Yeah. With me. And Dr. Lotus, that's why this show is so important because I'm like, regardless, I hate when people say it ran in the family. And I say it ran in the family until it ran into me.
Because here's the thing,
Yeah.
it was allowed, and
Yeah.
in the book that I wrote about this event, I talked about I I, I feel like it's where the child is silence of the lambs,
Yes.
because we are lambs and we are made to be silent because children are told that you are to be seen and not
And
heard.
not her.
So when children start telling the story, okay, we as adults tell them those cliches, and it further suppresses and
Yeah.
causes them to repress things that are happening. And then we grow up, many of us grow up and have dysfunctional relationships in
Yes.
many cases. Some of us grow up and are very sexually promiscuous,
I was very.
and I wasn't. So
Wow.
my thing was the opposite direction. I wore big clothes so nobody could see what I look like. Blah,
Wow.
blah, blah. And that goes to show that people can be impacted in diverse ways,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so the families have to say enough, no
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And these perpetrators, one, they need help and they need to pay for what they've done.
Yeah.
And so the only way that this happens is if we break the silence.
Yeah.
We
You
have
got to
to.
give voice. You have to give voice to the silence. Because inside, your body's screaming anyway. The body keeps record of every trauma, every wrong. So
Yep.
you're screaming out anyway. It's just coming out looking differently. You're not saying the words "I was molested," but I can tell when a young lady has a negative attitude, when she's smacking her lips, when she's cursing like a sailor, when she just doesn't care what she wears, or something happened.
Yes.
Something happened to get her to that place. She didn't come into the world
Right.
like that.
Right.
Something happened.
And I think that kind of circles back around to what you said about sometimes we are lost when it comes to our identity, because
Yeah.
not even the sexual identity aspect so much as the who am I?
Yeah.
Who am I, and why is this happening to me? Do I deserve this? Because
Yeah.
one of the things of a perpetrator is the element of control,
Yes.
the element to cause the person. And I don't like using the term victim, because I believe what was meant for victimization of me turned into victory, because I chose to speak up. I chose not to be silence of the lamb. I chose not to hush. I chose to speak up and speak out and be heard in such
Absolutely.
a time when I could. However, 15 years I carried that in
Yeah.
silence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I really think that we get lost in who we are and how we grow and what we become in some ways because we have been robbed
Yes.
of our
At such an early age. And then I was so twisted in my mind, I thought that sex equated to love. So if you didn't have sex with me, then you didn't
right.
love me, no
Nothing.
matter what you said. Yeah, no matter what you said. If you didn't have sex with me, you don't love me. And then the other piece is, like you said earlier, our identity, not so much sexually, but I wondered if because a female touched me first, am I now by default gay or bisexual, or what what should I be? Who
Right.
should I be attracted to? So then I get to college and I'm experimenting with things I have no business experimenting with, because it's just like it's a free for all. It's too many
Right.
doors open. And I tell people, we close the door, lock the door
Mhm.
before you walk into another door, close the door and make sure it's
Right.
padlocked. Yeah. Too many doors
And
open.
right. And you know what? The problem is that we go from one stage to another stage to another stage to another stage. And the problem is that, like you said, we've got all these doors
Yeah.
open, but who
That
is there
lead nowhere.
closing the gap for us?
Yeah.
Who is there helping us to understand that it's okay for us to move into another realm, but first we've got to close that
Yes.
chapter.
That chapter. Yeah.
And a lot of us don't know how to close the chapter because we don't know about the closure.
Right.
Nobody's fortifying us with closure.
Right.
So
And the closure may look different for everybody, because
exactly.
for some people their perpetrators are dead. So,
Yes.
there is no conversation, there is no phone call. You are required to forgive so that you can move forward and live your
Right.
best life for the years that you have here on the earth. But that person may be in the grave and
Mhm.
still holding you hostage. That's a whole lot of power, because that
Exactly.
means the dead person is still holding you hostage.
Exactly. We think, and I say so we think, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
I say that because oftentimes we are holding ourselves hostage.
That's
And
right.
the reason I say that is because I used to listen to this tape by Ayala Van Zandt.
Mm,
She wrote this book, and it was called One Day My Soul Opened Up. I don't know if you've ever heard
mm.
of the book or heard of the tape or anything like that.
Heard of it.
And what she said was, we forgive people for us, not them. And so it's unequivocal that we must forgive ourselves first,
Yes.
not the perpetrator, ourselves, because it's about control many times with the perpetrator, and they will lead us to believe that we deserve that type of treatment when in essence we didn't.
That's
But
right.
it's about control, it's about trickery, and it's about really taking over your own mindset
Mm-hmm.
so that they can get you to believe what they want you to believe. That's why so many people, when they're raped by a person, oftentimes people go back with that person.
Yes. Yes.
And then they begin to love that person. They begin to protect that person. They begin to justify why some things are happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think we have to start with forgiving ourselves, then forgiving the person who has done us this grave injustice. And that is a part of moving on. That is a part of really graduating to a perspective where we can forgive ourselves. We can.
Yeah. And Dr. Lotus, like we talked about earlier, I'll never forget, I was in a counseling session recently. I'm talking weeks ago. And
Mhm.
I clearly heard, this didn't just start with you. This goes back 8 generations.
Mhm.
So logically, we've got to think, like I've got to think about the female cousin. Well, who was touching her and who was touching the person that was touching her? Because it didn't just start with me and her. She didn't
Exactly.
say, yeah, she didn't set this thing in motion. And so, yes, I blame the predators, as we call them, um, But at one point, they were the quote unquote victim too.
Right. Right.
Because they learned it from somewhere. So there's a part of me that's, I don't want to say sympathetic, but empathetic, um
Yes.
with the people who did what they did, because what was broken in you that you felt like you had to do this to a 8-year-old girl. Yep.
And the person that told you that it's gone back 8 generations, I think you shared, that person has the ability to really take a contextual look rather than to see what's just on the surface. And I
Yeah.
say that simply because that's where we have to start.
Yeah.
We have to look at our history, what
Mm-hmm.
has gravitated us to such a perplexing place.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's so much bigger than us, and this is what some people may call a generational curse. I don't like to use that term, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it puts it in perspective so people, especially our church going folks, can understand that this has come from generations
Yes.
of trauma
Yes.
to our people. And when I say our people, I don't just mean people of color.
Yes.
I mean, it's pervasive, because let's
Yeah.
face it, there are other races
Oh,
where
all races.
this exists. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Every race. Yep. It
I think
spans races, socio-economic background, education, all of that.
exactly. And here's the thing. A lot of times we're ready to look at what's happening outside the other races before we deal with what's going on within our own race
Right in here. Yeah.
and what's going on also within our own self, within
That's
our
right.
own family.
Dr. Lotus, working on self is a full-time job. If you just
Whew!
focus
Yes,
on
it
self,
is. Yes, it is.
if you just focus on self full-time with no pay for overtime.
And
Yeah.
you don't have time to worry about nobody else when you focus in
Mm-mm.
on yourself. I'm gonna tell you, when I had my clients overseas, when I worked for the Department of Defense, I would tell them, look, you are going to come in here some days while we're working on you. You are going to be very tired.
Yeah.
Because it does affect one on a mental and
It does.
emotional level. It's without question that when you start dealing with the realness of what's happened to you, the realness of what's going on in your life, it's tiring.
It exhausting. Exhausting. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes,
But
it
uh,
is.
but at the same time, in your weakened state, you may feel weak in your body, you may feel weak in your spirit. And as you process, I believe that's the best way to heal and rebuild.
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. Heal and reveal. Somebody write that down. Go ahead and write that down. Heal and reveal.
Yeah.
So, sharing that, I'd like you, if you would, tell us what you mean when you say heal and reveal.
Mm-hmm. So I like to tell people healing comes in layers. It's like an onion. You peel it back, there's an outer layer, great. But as you go through, if you really cut to the middle of an onion, there's probably like 10 to 12 layers in that onion before you get to the last layer. And even that can be peeled back. So it's almost like as you heal from one thing, I always like to say what desires to be healed will be revealed. It naturally will rise to the top when you're mature enough and honest with yourself enough to really want to deal with it and process it. Because the brain is trained to protect us. It's trained to
Yes.
protect us from harm and hurt, fight or flight, all of the things. So there are things that we have buried over the years, things that we can't remember because the brain was trained to protect us, even as a
Exactly.
kid. Yeah, yeah. And so when I say heal and reveal, as you heal more, I believe more and more will be revealed and you get greater healing in the process.
And so I'm going to flip that. Do
Reveal
you
and heal?
believe when you reveal, you can start to heal?
Absolutely. Nothing heals under a Band-Aid, right? So we go to the
Exactly.
doctor, we might get a shot, it's bleeding a little bit, but they don't intend for you to keep that Band-Aid on for 12 months. It's going to get infected and everything else. They're going to say it needs some air. Take the Band-Aid off so it can heal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But why is it? And so we're going a little deeper here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going under the Band-Aid. Why is it in our journeys do we try so desperately to keep that Band-Aid on? Why do we try to do that, in your opinion?
Yeah. So we think about the Band-Aid is safe. The Band-Aid is covering up whatever the scar is. Nobody can get to it, whatever it is. Whether it's contaminated, doesn't matter. Because just like a little kid, they'll say, like my daughter, I have to chase her around the house to take a Band-Aid off because she's like, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. The glue is gonna hurt. And so, and so we think the healing process is going to hurt more than we're already hurting with the Band-Aid on.
I like that.
That's what we believe. We believe if I open Pandora's box, if I start this healing process, I don't know what the end looks like. And once I'm in it, now I'm just opening up everything. I'm just open.
I like that.
But no wound. But no wound. If you scrape your knee, you fall off your bike, you scrape your knee. Yes, put a Band-Aid on it until it stops bleeding. But once it stops bleeding, the body is taught to heal itself. So once it stops bleeding, you take the Band-Aid off.
Yes, I like that. I like that analogy. I really like that. So another question for you is when we take the Band-Aid off and we see that the scar is still there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go back and we're still dealing with this person. So do you think it's pouring more salt into that wound, which continues to prevent us from healing?
No, because the scar is there, but the wound is healed. The wound is healed. The scar is just a reminder of, I don't know if you can see, I got a scar on my forehead. I fell down a flight of stairs. I'll never forget it. Now the wound is healed. There's no bleeding or anything on my forehead, but the scar reminds me of that fall down a flight of stairs. And I believe there's purpose in our scars. Just like we're talking about sexual abuse and how we can turn it around for our good and not call ourselves victims, but victors. Okay, so how can God get the glory out of this story? And when we're in the midst of it, we can't see the victory because we're in the midst of the battle. But on the other side of that, I believe the scars have purpose. Scars tell people, listen, I've been to war, but I survived it, and you can too.
That's correct. All right. Yeah. I want you to repeat that. I've been to war and what?
I've been to war and I survived it, and you can too.
Awesome. Fantastic. And so, folks, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come right back. And I'd love for all of you around the world that's chiming in, go ahead and put a number 5 in there. 5. Stay alive. Why? Because guess what? We've been through the battle. She's healed. I've healed. And guess what? Yeah. You can too. We'll be right back.
The new season of Lotus Rashad Night Show, bringing you realness, authenticity, and unparalleled wisdom from top leaders, business professionals, pioneers, and everyday people. Thank you for joining us. Have a great time during the show.
Yeah. All right. I'm loving it. Fantastic. And we are back, folks. We are back. We are back. And listen, we are so appreciative that you're coming in. Thank you for all the 5s. And I see so many of you. So let's go ahead and jump right into some of our viewers. But before we jump into the viewers and start thanking all of you, we're going to give each and every one of you a few seconds, because we want you to go ahead and tag somebody. Want you to tag somebody, and then we want you to go ahead and tell us where you're coming in from. You've got 30 seconds. Thank you for joining the show this evening. We have a phenomenal guest as we are talking about breaking the cycle of silence around sexual abuse with our amazing guest, none other than Tenita Bestseller Johnson. How are you helping to break the cycle of silence? All right. And we are back. Again, we are back with our wonderful topic, breaking the cycle with our special guest. She hails all the way from Rochester, Michigan. She's a speaker. She's a #1 best-selling author. She's a serial author and entrepreneur. She's a trainer. She's a publisher. And she is here today helping all of us with one of her books called Hush.
Yes.
Hush, breaking the cycle of silence around sexual abuse. Okay. And so as you come in, please go ahead. Don't forget, put your 5s in. Thank you so much. We see you, Dwayne Walton. Great to see you. Angela Elting. Happy to have you here. And we see folks coming in from DC, from the Philippines, from Africa. So happy to have you here. And so here's the thing. We want, and I see you too, Dr. Selena Pinashimo. She said, yes, indeed, break the cycle of silence. Yes, we've got to break the cycle of silence. Dr. Heflin, we see you here. So happy to have you. And all the way from Texas, we see you here, Dr. Sabita Singh, Angela Elting, and so many more. We see you, and some of you folks that we cannot see, we thank you even though we cannot see you. And so with that being said, we have a comment here, enjoying the show from the Philippines, and we're happy that you are enjoying the show from the Philippines too. So with that being said, I want to jump right in because we're already at the top of the hour. Wow, this segment has gone so fast.
I know.
Yeah. I know that you have another book that's coming out.
Yes.
I know this book was a book which showed primarily women.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All women in this book. Okay. You had authors like Michelle D. Clark, Sandra S. Dennis, of course, yours truly yourself, Tanya K. Austin, Deandra A. Parks, Dominique M. Johnson, Joyce Laverne, and Tanyelle Platter McBride. But the next book, the next Hush, you're going to really turn the corner. You're doing something different. Can you tell us about the next book?
Yeah, Dr. Lotus, kind of in line with what our mission is with the nonprofit, we are aspiring to find a few good men, 10 few good men to be exact, who are brave enough to share their stories and come forward and talk about their experience with sexual abuse, what happened, lessons learned, how it affected their relationships, their family, and where they are today. And not only write their story and share their story, but be brave enough to then do interviews like we're doing here tonight after the book has been released, because the real work begins after the book is done.
Exactly. Because oftentimes people don't know that their friends, their brothers, their uncles, their cousins have actually suffered those types of abuses. So you know, it's kind of a shock sometimes to the family. It can be a shock to a marriage. I have a great friend who actually was molested by his uncle, and you know, it's sad because this wonderful man never got the opportunity to share his story with those that would otherwise have been able to maybe help him close the chapter or
and so the other thing with that, Dr. Lotus, is one of the males from Hush 2 His mom actually found out when we were doing a Facebook Live video. We were doing an interview for a
Oh, wow.
podcast.
Uh-huh.
That's when his mother found out.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, did he have the opportunity to share with you how his mother felt
he
when she
did.
found out?
He
Mhm.
did. Oh, you better believe as soon as we got done with that interview, his phone was blowing up by many family members. But it's his truth, and we have to stand firmly in our truth, regardless of how people feel about it. They're uncomfortable, but I always tell people you got to put the mask on you first.
Exactly, exactly. So, folks, um, this is a tough conversation. This is a tough conversation. But we welcome men, and we're seeking 10 great men that are
Yes,
brave enough to share their stories, to share your stories, because your stories can not only help someone, but it can change the trajectory of their lives. Because let's face it, many people suicide
yes,
because of sexual assaults.
that's right.
It is without question that during the pandemic, suicides increased
Increase.
because of
Mhm.
domestic violence within the home. And I can only imagine how many of those was from some type of sexual assault.
Yeah,
Maybe not same sex sexual assaults, but I don't want to say maybe not, but same sexual assaults as well as sexual assaults against people's spouses.
hmm yeah.
A lot of that was going on.
It was. And
So,
Dr. Lotus, I considered suicide too many times to count because I couldn't understand why or even how I could break free. There was
right.
a point in my life where I didn't feel like I would break free. I felt like this was just my thorn. This was my cross. This was what would be with me the rest of my life. I didn't even know what freedom really looked like.
Hmm. And it's unfortunate because a lot of that, what you shared that you were feeling, was that a lot of it, that's how we're conditioned to be.
Hmm
We're conditioned to feel that it's our burden to bear and that we
Yeah.
must hush and not say anything.
Complain or say anything.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so, with that being said, you don't have to be silent anymore. Shows, this show, the Lotus Richey Ignite show, books like Hush by the #1 international best-selling author herself, Tenita Johnson. We're here to provide a way for you to get your story out.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are watching all across the world, those of you that are sharing this broadcast, I thank you for broadcasting and sharing this broadcast, because someone that you know,
Yes.
love, or care about may be suffering in silence.
hmm
And I just welcome you to support the opportunity for people to step up and tell their story, because it's time to continue to break the cycle of silence around sexual abuse. And what better way to do it than with a tribe of people that care enough to support you? And
hmm
so I want to again invite, we're looking for 10 great men, but we'll take 20. We'll take
We
30,
will.
40, we'll take 50, we'll take 100 great men, because we know that this is pervasive globally,
hmm
and we want to help you tell your story, help you to break free. So, what's the best way that they could email you to reach out to you?
Absolutely. So they can email me at info@soitiswritten.net. So It Is Written is the name of the publishing company. Info@soitiswritten.net. And then I'll send them all the details, the breakdown of how long the chapter needs to be, word count, due dates, all of those things.
Okay, fantastic. And if you want to go to if they want to go to your website, how can they reach you at your website?
Absolutely. So the company website is www.soitiswritten.net. It's not .com, it's actually .net. So it is written.com is a totally different website. And then if you want my personal booking information or more about my books or speaking, TenitaJohnson.com.
And then for the social media, they can reach you how?
On all platforms, Tenita Bestseller. They'll find me.
All right. All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. And of course, so it is written, so it shall be.
Yes.
You can really release yourself, but you have to write it down and put it out there
That's
so
right.
that people can know your story. So, with no further ado, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and have our final words of wisdom for this broadcast. And don't worry, folks, we will be coming back to you again with the next book. And those of you that are interested in sharing your story, don't forget her information will be right down below so that you can connect with her and make sure that you know that you're not alone. You can check her out on our websites. You can send her a direct email so that she can help you get to where you're trying to go. Because so it is, so it shall be, so it is. We'll be right back.
With the Lotus Crusade Night Show, featuring our amazing guest, Tenita Johnson, also known as Tenita Bestseller Johnson. With over 18 books to her credit, she is living proof that sharing your story leads to your destiny.
You have to see yourself in a different place. The depression comes and it tells you that there will never be better days. That the way it is today, it will always be this way. And that's just not the truth. Better days are coming. Hang on. Better days are coming. Hang on. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Better days are going to come. I'm a witness. If you just hold on, if you just wait a little while longer, I promise you, the days are going to get better and it's going to be worth it.
Woo! Tonight,
The bestseller in the house, Tenita Johnson. Woo! Oh, yes.
It's so hot. It's so hot.
Fantastic. And I'm simply loving it. And so, Tenita, we've had a great time tonight, and I can't wait to see you back on the show. And I know you got another book coming out. So, what's next for the bestseller, Tenita Johnson?
So we're working on Recrowning God's Daughters, which is a series of books where women discuss where they lost their crown, damaged their crown, broke the crown, didn't even know they had a crown on their head. So, and it's based on the saying where people are saying, fix your sister's crown without telling her it's crooked or letting the world know that it's crooked. And so we've got about 13 women coming out with that first rendition of that book. And then later in the year, Hush 3, Lord willing, will be out with 10 plus men. You said 20 or 30. So now I'm looking for more.
Exactly. Yeah. Overflow,
yes.
overflow, because it's time to heal the land. And the way that we heal the land is to help people tell their story so they can heal themselves. That's right. The truth, and I am sticking to it. So for our final words of wisdom, and don't let me forget, to our audience, we just so love and appreciate you folks from all around the world. I see Texas is in the house. A few Texans are in here tonight. So great to see you. I see folks from Atlanta and all over. Hey, Dwayne Walter said exposure leads to closure. I like that. I like that. Exposure.
Better put it on the t-shirt.
Yes, I like that. That's amazing. So everyone from around the world, some people we can't see you, but we know that you're here chiming in and just sharing support. If you know someone who has a story to share, who has really been suffering, who you want to connect with someone, please use this email. Connect with Tenita. Let her help that person, or if that person is you, let her help you help yourself, because exposure is closure. Thank you so much. And so for our final words of wisdom, Tenita, the platform is yours.
I would like to say you are worth the fight for freedom. You're worth the fight for freedom. And it is a fight. But you have a predetermined victory. So I would say be intentional about doing your own work. You can't copy off of anybody's paper for this. This life is your race. You need to get laser focused and put on blinders and just focus on running your race. Stay in your lane. Working on self is a full-time job. You don't get to quit. You don't get to throw in the towel. You don't get to resign. There's always more work to do, but be willing to do the work. And I believe you'll see a better version of yourself emerge every day you live on this earth. You're worth it.
I love it. Woo woo! That's what I'm talking about. Mousetrap, pow!
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. And so, folks, for all of you that have joined us tonight, my final words of wisdom is please, again, support our guests, support Hush and the Hush movement. And also, I would appreciate if you would support this broadcast. Share with us by PayPal, by Zelle, by Cash App, $33. Look up what that means. $33. Share with our broadcast so we can continue to devote this time that we are devoting to have fantastic speakers just like Tenita. And the next time we come back on the broadcast, we're going to bring her back. And hey, there's a secret. Okay, this is some secret sauce, baby. We're going to have 2 book giveaways. That's right, 2 book giveaways right here on the show. And who knows, the book that she's got coming out before it ever even comes out, I think I'm going to try to put some dibs on it so I can get one of them books for someone out in this audience. So my words of wisdom tonight is never be afraid to look inside yourself for the answers that you're searching outside of yourself to discover, because the real answer is in you. So with no further ado, again, I want to thank my girl, Tenita, the Bestseller Johnson, the #1 international bestseller several times over, because she is helping to break the cycle of silence surrounding sexual abuse. But guess what? She's also breaking the silence surrounding so many other things that hold us back and that bind us. So until we meet again, remember to ignite and take flight in every area of your life, and have a great night. See you soon.
The new season of the Lotus and Shanghai Show, bringing you realness, authenticity, and unparalleled wisdom from top leaders, business professionals, pioneers, and everyday people. Thank you for joining us. Have a great time during the show. You're here tonight with the Lotus and Shanghai Show, featuring our amazing guest, Tenita Johnson, also known as Tenita Johnson. With over 18 months to her verdict, she is living proof that sharing your story leads to your destiny.
You have to see yourself in a different place. The depression comes and it tells you that there will never be better days. That the way it is today, it will always be this way. And that's just not the truth. Better days are coming. Hang on. Better days are coming. Hang on. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Better days are going to come. I'm a witness. If you just hold on, if you just wait a little while longer, I promise you, the days are going to get better and it's going to be worth it.
Tenita Johnson, let's tonight.